So I want to talk about one of the most tragic things I've experienced in my 7 years of teaching here. As all of you know, we just had exam week here in Cambridge, right? And some people did well, while others not so much. This student that you can now see, that I'm going to call Anna for the purposes of this talk, was in the not so much camp. Why sugarcoat it? She unfortunately failed quite a few of her exams. So I had a chat with her, right? I tried to find out what went wrong. Why is it that she did not meet her own expectations? And you know what she told me? What the first words that came out of her mouth were? She said, "They were right all along. I don't belong here." I don't know how to describe this, but when I heard those words, when I heard what Anna told me, it kind of shattered me a bit. For reasons that I'm going to discuss in depth later on in this talk, don't worry about that. But for now, I first want to answer a simple question. Who the fuck is they? So without being too specific on the details, Anna is by no means kind of a big city girl. In fact, she comes from a very small town in this part of the country right here. Not in, but close to Birmingham, right? And the thing about this town is that it's one of those places where basically no one goes to university. And at first you might think that folks in this town would be really happy that one of them, Anna, right, not only made it to university, but she got into one of the best universities in the country. She got into Cambridge, the Yas Girl Slay Queen of British universities, as you Gen Zers would put it. But turns out, no, they weren't. I mean, some were, but according to Anna, a lot of people there were surprisingly bitter about the whole thing, and kind of made fun of her for going to university. Look at Mrs. Fancy Pants over there, going to her fancy university. You think you're better than us? Just you wait, you'll never make it, and then you'll come back crawling here. And one of these things was apparently said by one of Anna's family members. Ouch. And now, before moving on and kind of dissecting this story, this is something I want to ask you guys. How did people around you react when you went to university? Were they happy about it? Did they try to put you down? Did they support you? I'm really curious to hear, so please share your opinions, and also people at home, write down in the comment section. And now, circling back to the point at hand, if you want to be a top student, or if you want to be like a top performer in whatever field you choose to specialize in, there are 3 important things that all of you must do. And this right here is the foundational one. You have to realize that this stuff, the type of things that people told Anna, is bullshit. So anyone here familiar with the so-called tall poppy syndrome? Yeah, I wasn't either until I started doing research on this task. So here's what Wikipedia has to say about this. And yes, I'm a professor and I'm using Wikipedia. The people that tell you that you shouldn't do this are probably still looking for the Victorian era. The tall poppy syndrome refers to successful people being criticized. This occurs when peers believe they are too successful. Intense scrutiny and criticisms of such a person is termed cutting down the tall poppy. In the Netherlands, this expression is "don't put your head above ground level," while in Japan, for all the weebs in this room, the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. And as always, the Japanese have their way with words. Here's the thing for everyone in the audience who wants to grow personally or professionally. For those of you who really want to create things of value, to be in the top 1% of students, entrepreneurs, you name it, you need to learn to tune out the noise around you. And note that I'm not saying here that you should reject all feedback, right? Kinda all criticism. But you do want to be skeptical of it. You do want to be skeptical of the stuff people tell you. Because many times the things that people tell us to put us down are not at all a reflection on us, on the people being told these things, but are entirely a reflection on the person making that comment. The stuff Anna was told by the people in her village had nothing to do with her and entirely with the jealousy and the egos of people around her. And this ended up costing her dearly. Because here's a question for you guys. What happens when we don't tune out the noise? What happens when we let it get to us? Yeah, exactly. We become more sensitive. We become more fragile, right? We become more fragile. When we make like a mistake, when we get a score that's even slightly worse than expected, it is the end of the world. Because they, our critics, right, from Anna's story, were right. They were right all along, or at least that's what we convince ourselves. People procrastinate not because they're lazy. In fact, that's mostly a lie. People procrastinate because they let the bullshit around them get to them. They internalize the negativity that all these other jealous individuals are like directing towards them, which creates, you know, fear of trying and ultimately pushes you down to stuff like excessive video games or doom scrolling or kind of these escapism methods because you need to escape the noise. And this, learning to tune it out, learning to not let all this noise get to you, is going to wipe the slate clean and allow you to grow, allow you to develop. Okay, and now that this is all clear, let's move on to what I call the best fertilizer for growing as a student. Let's talk about why you guys are dumb as shit. Right, so the last thing I said about you guys being dumb, that was mostly for dramatic effect. This is going on YouTube, after all. By the way, subscribe if you haven't. Chaka 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 choo choo. But there is some truth to what I said, right? When I use the word dumb, so when I say dumb, I mean that people, and you know, myself included obviously, we are very, very bad at being accountable to ourselves. And I mean scientifically, we have peer-reviewed studies showing just how shit we are at this whole accountability thing. For example, does something like this sound familiar to any of you? You wake up one day determined to kind of get your life back on track, so you set up a to-do list, you take out your bullet journal, you plan and are ready to go, right? You wanna do stuff, right? You wanna achieve something that day. And then you guys know what I'm talking about. You have this plan, which is perfect and beautiful and brilliant, but then the slightest distraction, right? The smallest thing comes around and it kind of ruins the thing entirely. 5 minutes later, you're like doom scrolling on Reddit or salivating over Chris Pratt's latest picture. And this right here, this inability to be accountable to yourself, is one of those things that is going to absolutely wreck your productivity. So how do the 1% do it? How do the 1% do it? How do you stay on top of your stuff, right? How do people like Elon Musk do it? And you know, I don't have the biggest admiration for Elon Musk, but anyway, this is a good example to give here. Are they superhuman, these people that can get ahead of everyone else? Please, have you seen Musk's tweets? He's no superhuman. Instead, the simple truth is that they made their accountability external. They have other people, other stakeholders in their lives to which they report, to which they are accountable. For example, here in Cambridge, if you were to plot like student performance, right, against the people in the tightly knit group of friends that you have, then the relationship would be extremely clear. There would be a very strong positive correlation. And this tells us that there's no two ways about it. If you want to grow and improve your study capabilities, having an accountability partner, delegating your accountability is the way to go. It's an invaluable resource that not a lot of people take advantage of, and you guys are losing out. Sorry? Bad news for introverts. Well, in a way, I guess, but here's the thing. There's no one in this world that's a bigger introvert than me, okay? In fact, if you open up the dictionary right now, if you open up the dictionary and you look at the word introvert, you're going to find my face plastered all around there. So I have expertise in this subject. But the thing about introversion that you have to remember is that The minute you have a shared goal, the minute you're working with someone towards a shared purpose, introversion kind of melts away. You know, we're introverted when we have to do small talk, when we're at social gatherings where we're told, okay, you have to socialize, but we are not really told what we have to talk about, what we have to socialize about. The minute you have a purpose, the minute you meet up with someone to study or to work on a project or to work on a business or whatever, introversion just disappears. It melts away like there's no tomorrow. And in fact, in my opinion, I think introverts are some of the most powerful people to do this kind of thing, to do this sort of climb, because they are the type of people who care, who put a lot of their personal well-being into doing well, into kind of impressing this broader audience. Anyway, a story for another lecture. So, find an accountability buddy. And speaking of accountability, it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. It's time to talk about why universities are garbage. So here's the thing many students often forget. The university, you know, professors, staff, etc., kind of all these people around you, they're here to serve you, the student. You are the one who should have priority here, because you are the ones who are financing this whole institution, right? You're the ones giving them their paychecks ultimately. But often people forget this, and Anna was one of them. You know, they don't go to office hours because they fear they're going to bother their professors. They don't ask questions in class because they don't want to sound stupid or something. Some of you guys might have heard of Hofstede. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. I am terrible with names, as you guys know. This guy, right, of Hofstede. He's a famous philosopher. He's a famous philosopher who coined the term power distance. You know, the way in which people in a society kind of interact with each other on a hierarchical level. In universities, most of the time, this power distance is huge. It's kind of through the fucking roof, because professors are oftentimes seen as kind of these gods and deities among students. And sometimes it's really hard not to let that idea go to your head. But the point is, it's not ideal. So the third kind of important piece of advice that I want to give everyone here is to use your unfair advantage. If you have the ear of kind of like some of the best and brightest researchers in the world, then use that. Use it. Ask them questions about the material. Chat with them to kind of have a deeper understanding of what is going on here. Again, they are here to serve you. They are here to make sure that you perform well and that you are qualified for a good life later on. Don't just skate through university and then end up regretting it like so many people do. People nowadays regret university like crazy, and I think this is one of the reasons. They just go through it. They just go with the flow without ever making the most of it, without exploiting their unfair advantages, so of course they're going to end up regretting it. Similarly, for the people that are now watching that let's say are not students, there are most likely opportunities in your life that you're not exploiting because of some internal resistance, because you're shy or afraid or don't want to bother the higher ups. You need to stand up. You need to ask for what is yours, because no one is going to give it to you unless you take advantage of what you have, unless you leverage your position of power. To reach the 1%, right, or even to reach kind of the top 5%, you cannot afford to be wasteful. You need to use all the opportunities you have. And you know, that might involve stepping out of your comfort zone, even talking with people. Disgusting! Okay, so there's a lot more to be said, obviously, but if you can do these three things, if you learn to tune out the noise to kind of clean your slate, if you externalize accountability, have someone with which you work towards your goals, and finally leverage your unfair advantages, you are well on your way to glory. Right, so if you're feeling down after kind of a long session of study, what you want to do is to toss that fucker down and kind of start